Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy, or REBT, is a specific approach within the cognitive behaviour therapy tradition which emphasises the role of basic attitudes when people make psychologically disturbed responses or psychologically healthy responses to life's adversities. When people respond unhealthily to life's adversities, they hold a set of basic attitudes towards these adversities that are rigid and extreme. On the other hand, when people respond healthily to life's adversities, they hold a set of basic attitudes towards these adversities that are flexible and non-extreme. REBT has an ABC model of psychological disturbance and health, where A stands for the adversity, B stands for the basic attitudes that the person holds towards the adversity, and C stands for the consequences of holding these basic attitudes towards the adversity. Let me now graphically outline REBT's view of psychological disturbance and health by using the ABC model. As I have said, A stands for an adversity. When a person faces an adversity, they hold a set of basic attitudes that are either rigid and extreme or flexible and non-extreme. When their basic attitudes are rigid and extreme, their rigid attitude indicates that they hold a desire that the adversity not exist, and then they transform this desire into a demand that it must not do so. When a person's attitude towards the adversity is rigid, they tend to hold one or more extreme attitudes towards the adversity. They may hold an awfulizing attitude where they think that it is not only bad for the adversity to exist, but it is awful that it may exist. They may hold a discomfort intolerance attitude towards the adversity, where they hold that it is not only a struggle for them to tolerate the adversity, but that they can't bear doing so. Or they may hold a depreciation attitude towards the adversity, where again they not only hold that it is bad for the adversity to exist, but they are bad because they hold themselves responsible for the existence of the adversity, or that you are bad because they hold you to be responsible for the existence of the adversity, or they think that life is bad because they hold that life is responsible for the existence of the adversity. When a person's attitudes towards an adversity are rigid and extreme, they tend to experience a number of disturbed consequences of holding these rigid and extreme attitudes. Their emotions may be disturbed, thus they may hold the following negative and unhealthy emotions: anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, unhealthy anger, hurt, unhealthy jealousy, or unhealthy envy. Second, their behaviours may be disturbed and unconstructive. Thus, they may act on the aforementioned unhealthy negative emotions, and these actions will tend to be unconstructive for them. They may also avoid facing and dealing with the adversity when their basic attitudes are rigid and extreme. Finally, when their basic attitudes are rigid and extreme, their subsequent thinking, including any images that they may have, will tend to be highly distorted and skewed to the negative, and their thinking will probably be ruminative in nature. On the other hand, when a person's basic attitudes towards the adversity are flexible and non-extreme, their flexible attitude comprises the same desire for the adversity not to exist, but without the demands that it must not do so. When their attitude is flexible towards the adversity, they will then tend to hold one or more of the following non-extreme attitudes. They may experience a non-awfulizing attitude where once again they hold that it is bad for the adversity to exist, but not awful for it to do so. They may hold a discomfort tolerance attitude towards the adversity, where once again they hold that it is a struggle to put up with the existence of the adversity, but that they can bear doing so, and that it's worth bearing, and that they are going to bear it. Finally, they may hold an acceptance attitude towards the adversity. Once again, they may think that it is bad for the adversity to exist, but that they are unrateable as a person, and a complex mixture of good, bad, and neutral, and that you are unrateable as a person and a complex mixture of good, bad, and neutral, and that life is unrateable and a complex mixture of good, bad, and neutral. Once a person holds a set of basic attitudes that are flexible and non-extreme, the consequences of doing so tend to be healthy rather than disturbed. Thus, the person will experience emotions that may be negative in tone but are healthy in consequences. Thus, they may experience concern but not anxiety, sadness rather than depression, remorse rather than guilt, disappointment rather than shame. Their anger will tend to be healthy rather than unhealthy. They will experience sorrow rather than hurt, and their jealousy would be healthy rather than unhealthy, and their envy will be healthy rather than unhealthy. Their behavior, when they hold basic attitudes towards the adversity that are flexible and non-extreme, will also be constructive, and that they will act on the healthy negative emotions that I've just listed, and that these actions will be constructive for them, and that they will also tend to face and deal with the adversity rather than avoid doing so. Finally, their thinking, including the images that they may have, would tend to be realistic and balanced in nature rather than highly distorted and skewed to the negative. And finally, their thinking would be non-ruminative in nature rather than ruminative.